Hey guys, happy Tuesday. I'm Dr. Carrie Wise, founder of JoyfulDVM, veterinarian, certified life coach, and today I want to talk about entitlement. So I've been thinking about this a lot. There is so much going on in the world right now as we are in the middle of this COVID-19 pandemic. And I think that it has brought out the best and the worst in a lot of us. And as I have witnessed how other people are reacting to the changes in their lives that are associated with the coronavirus, it has been quite a fascinating study in human behavior. I think that you guys have also noticed these kinds of things in your own life. You've probably seen how people that you are close to and people that you know are behaving differently than they have in the past. And people are just a little edgier. It makes perfect sense that they are. We see people getting upset quickly over things that don't actually matter at all. And I think most of us recognize that when people kind of blow up all of a sudden, it's usually not the last thing, right? So whoever they're blowing up at, whatever the thing is that sets them off, if you will, it's usually not that thing that has caused the problem. It's just a pile of different things and they've kind of hit their breaking point. And as I've been watching this happen, I think it's been really interesting to see what people believe that they are entitled to, what they have a right to have. And so that led me to investigate the whole concept of entitlement. It's a term that we throw around a lot in the veterinary world. We often use the word entitled to talk about clients, quite honestly. We talk about entitled clients, right? The things that they expect that they should just be able to have. And so thinking about entitled clients and thinking about other areas where people are entitled and where we've used this word, I wanted to dig into it a little bit. And what I found was kind of fascinating and a different perspective of the word entitlement and the concept, which brought me to this idea of the circle of entitlement, which is what we're going to talk about. So as we get started, I want to share with you the definition of entitlement. Entitlement is the fact of having a right to something. So the fact of having a right to something. Like I already shared, a lot of the time we use this word to describe our clients in vet med. So we say that they're entitled, and why? Why do we believe that they're entitled? Well, often it's because they're asking for things that we think are extra, right? They're asking for something outside of the scope of what we normally do. So maybe it's a callback right in the middle of appointments where you don't have time to run and pick up the phone. Maybe it's coming in after hours when you don't offer emergency services. Maybe it's leaving medications for them outside when that's not typically the way that you do things on a normal day. So I'm not talking like COVID-19 related, but I'm talking like after hours. I can't get there to pick up my meds. Can't you just leave them somewhere? Can you meet me down there? Those kinds of things. And what I think is really interesting is that we label them as entitled because we believe that they have a right to that thing, so to whatever they're requesting. Now, I've talked before about how good customer service and client entitlement can't coexist. And I 100% believe that's true. There's another Facebook Live all about that. And just the brief overview of that is that if we're frustrated by entitled clients, so the clients who ask for the extra and then expect it over and over and over again, we must also recognize our role in that, which is that at some point they asked and we gave in, right? Like we did the thing they asked for, so we taught them how to treat us. And so it's okay, it's no wonder, if you will, that they ask for those things again. So with that in mind, if we think about entitlement in general, this is where this whole circle of entitlement can come up. And I'm going to walk through three very very clear examples of this. Another place that I wanted to point out that we often use the word entitled is to like entire generations of people. And Simon Sinek did a really great TED Talk on this. I think it was a TED Talk. It might have just been an interview. But it was about like millennials and entitlement and kind of how we have fostered that. Like, I think that we label people as entitled and it has a negative connotation to it, but we do that without any recognition of how it occurred. So like the entitled clients, if they keep coming back to you asking for the extra over and over and over again, why is that? It's because their experience shows if they ask, they get it. And so when we think about an entire generation that we've labeled entitled, I think that we do a huge disservice to them because they grew up in a world where certain things were provided and support was given. And so why would they not then expect to have things given and support provided? I don't think the problem is in their expectation. I think the problem becomes in our interpretation of their expectation, which is where this whole concept of the circle of entitlement comes in. So let me kind of walk through one of these and give you an example of this. So let's talk about Let's talk about clients who show up on time. So we feel entitled in the veterinary world, in our practices, we feel entitled to have clients show up on time for their appointments. Seems like a pretty normal thing to expect, right? And then, though, they're humans, and humans will do what humans do, and they're late. So then what happens? When a client is late, then we become angry, we become frustrated. When we're angry and frustrated, what do? We often talk about it, we stew about it, we blame. We talk about how it's going to impact us negatively, and we feel very justified in feeling all of those things because the client was late. And this is where the circle comes in, because we started out entitled to them showing up on time, and then they weren't, and now we're super angry about it, and so we feel entitled to be angry about what they did. It's a circle. And what's so interesting about it is that entitlement will always create frustration because we're arguing with reality. We have these things that we think should be a certain way, and then they're not, and then we're mad. Like that's kind of how that goes in a linear fashion. But it doesn't just stop there. That's why it's a circle, because then we're mad, but we feel justified for being mad. So we really feel like we have a right to be mad. We are entitled to be mad about the thing that didn't happen the way that it was. It just becomes a vicious cycle. Here's another one for you. Let's just talk about the pandemic. And this is a lot of kind of what took me down this road today and why I was even thinking about this. But we think about our lives right now in the midst of this pandemic, and we feel like we shouldn't live in a world of the pandemic, right? We felt entitled to living pandemic free, if you will. I don't know that many of us really ever considered that as something that we believed was a right, but having been in it, we can look back and see that we kind of believe like that was just the way that it was in our particular experience and in our lifetime. And so if we've had that belief that we really deserve to live in a time without a pandemic, and then we do have one, so coronavirus comes across, then guess what happens? We get angry, we get frustrated, we get scared, all of those things. And what do? What all of us do when we become angry and frustrated and scared, we start blaming. So we blame countries, we blame leaders, we blame other people for the way that they're behaving, wearing masks, not wearing masks, wearing gloves, not wearing gloves, social distancing, not social distancing, all the things, right? So we do all of this blaming, which just creates more anger and frustration and fear for us, but it feels justified. So now we feel very justified, we feel very entitled to our right to complain about and blame about all these people associated with coronavirus. It's a circle of entitlement. We started out thinking that the world shouldn't have a pandemic, but then it did. And then we had an emotional reaction. We got angry. We started to blame. And now we feel like we have a right to blame all the people for the things they're doing because of the pandemic. We are just arguing with the reality and continuing to perpetuate a negative emotional cycle. This circle of entitlement never ends well. Because when the thing that you want is something you don't get, the thing that you deserve, you believe you deserve is something you don't get, then you're only left with the option to be angry about it. And then we often just go right into justification, which just creates another layer of entitlement. It's really interesting. One more example. Patients getting better. Now this one's subtle. But a lot of us believe, because we tie our value and our abilities in veterinary medicine to patient outcomes often. I've talked about this a lot. It's very bad idea, but we all do it because we like to have those like tangible means of success, right? So somewhere along the line, we've got this all skewed, and we think when patients get better, we're doing it right. When patients don't get better, we're doing it wrong. It's a terrible slippery slope. But when patients get better, like we believe that if we do everything right, the patient should get better.